to contact the Coast Guard. The plane was flying over water. Perhaps the Coast Guard could act on its own and search the water, even if the FAA was refusing to cooperate and search the skies. But let's first acknowledge here that if a plane is missing and you call the Coast Guard instead of the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, it's either because you're retarded and you don't know the difference between flying a plane and sailing a boat, or it's because you have exhausted all hope of getting the FAA to act. The Kennedys aren't retarded. By 2:15 in the morning, they were desperate and they called the Coast Guard to look for a plane. The Coast Guard cooperated. I guess you could call it that. They contacted the FAA. Ay, Meshuggah. But at least now the FAA was on notice that another government agency was involved. They had to do something, and so the FAA did something. The FAA contacted the Air Force, the government agency most obviously criminally involved in the events of September 11th. The Air Force contacted the Coast Guard, letting them know that the Air Force, not the Coast Guard, was now in charge, letting them know that the Coast Guard should now do what the military tells them to do, and the Air Force then sent the Coast Guard on a wild goose chase to search an area 100 miles away from anywhere the plane might have gone down. Meanwhile, from 2 a.m. until 7:30 a.m., the Air Force and the FAA did nothing. At 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning, Ted Kennedy woke up John Podesta, Clinton's chief of staff. At 7 a.m., Podesta woke up Clinton. At 7:15, Clinton told Podesta to call the Air Force and tell them that if they didn't have a search underway in 15 minutes, they shouldn't bother to come to work on Monday because they would all be fired if they weren't in jail. The Air Force said, "Oh, you want a search? We'll give you a search," and they scattered 2 planes and 2 helicopters across 20,000 square miles of ocean. The Air Force kept them searching this vast expanse for the next 5.5 hours. Now, obviously, not everybody at FAA was involved in a criminal conspiracy, with Colonel Rourke and the Air Force and the Pentagon. After all, Bergen got his information about the tower contact from some honest person at the FAA, and many other professionals at FAA also did their jobs as usual. For example, studying the radar tapes of Kennedy's flight, performing what is called an NTAP radar analysis. The name of this type of review of the radar records, NTAP, means that you go back to takeoff. You start with the plane identifying itself to the tower, giving its N number, its registration number. In this case, N529JK. The plane's radar blip is identified at takeoff, and this particular blip is then followed along its flight path until it disappears, indicating the crash site. The New York Times says this information was available at 5 a.m. and hard-working, honest news people with contacts at FAA got a hold of this radar information, and they put it into their TV broadcasts, and they put it up on the screen at the same moment that they were asking Colonel Rourke to explain why, 8 hours after the results of the NTAP radar study were available, the search vessels were still scattered all over the Atlantic, when the radar showed definitively that the plane had gone down on the western approach to Martha's Vineyard.
Colonel Rourke, Martha Raddatz from ABC. ABC is reporting today that the plane possibly went into a dive about 19 miles off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. Does that mean the search will start focusing right there and you will pull away from, say, Long Island or other areas you're searching, or will you pretty much go about what you're doing?
We'll continue on the same track that we're on, which is to search the entire area. We have nothing that absolutely pinpoints one area as opposed to another, so we can't rule out the entire flight.
The reporter can't believe what she's hearing. Can it be that this guy, the spokesman for a day, chosen by the Air Force, doesn't even know about the radar information? So she asks him.
Are you hearing those reports at all about 19 miles off Martha's Vineyard? The radar...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The radar indicated that at some point that the plane may have gone into a dive?
The radar position is just a last possible position, and it's...
The radar position was not just a last possible position. It was a crash site. This is the official radar report from the NTSB documents. The plane dropped 1,200 feet in the first 12 seconds. This is 12 times what would be considered a normal rate of descent. The next 30 seconds is probably 50 times normal. The plane then disappeared from the radar. Rourke had this information, but this is not an area of special interest to him? And Colonel Rourke didn't simply misspeak at the press conference. He told this lie to anyone who would listen, including the New York Times. But back at the Pentagon press conference, the lying is just getting started.
Just a last possible position, and it can't even be confirmed that it's the aircraft we're looking for. So, again, we can't rule
It
out.
can be confirmed. It had been confirmed. Remember, the NTAP radar study begins by identifying the plane at takeoff. So again, Rourke is lying. But let's take a moment to clarify who this Colonel Steve Rourke is.
Lieutenant Colonel Steve Rourke, R-O-A-R-K. He's currently the director of the U.S. Air Force's National Search and Rescue School, which is at the U.S. Coast Guard Station in Yorktown, Virginia. He is the former director of the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center. He is physically in the Rescue Coordination Center right now.
So Steve Rourke is very senior. He is the former director of the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center.
Colonel Rourke is a HH-53 helicopter pilot. He's personally been involved in over 1,000 rescues, search and rescue operations in his career. And Steve, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Colonel Rourke may not know anything about what happened to John Kennedy Jr., but he does know about search and rescue in general. He's intimately familiar with what an NTAP means. He must be vastly familiar with radar tapes. So Colonel Rourke's errors are not simple mistakes. He's lying his head off. But you answer the question, why? I guess I don't know why is a perfectly legitimate answer to that question. But can't we do better than that? Can we find any other evidence that suggests a more qualified, more specific, more useful answer than I don't know? I think so. The obvious answer is that they were trying to keep the rescue craft out of the crash area.
Our search, and by about 1 o'clock this afternoon, we had narrowed that focus down to an area of about 17 miles southwest of Martha's Vineyard, consistent with the kind of flight path that we would expect flying VFR from Caldwell, New Jersey to Martha's Vineyard. At about that same
You get the point. The FAA knew where Kennedy's plane had gone down before it hit the water. The NTAP radar study verifying where Kennedy's plane had crashed was completed at 5 a.m., but Rourke and the Air Force kept the Coast Guard searching this vast expanse for the next 5.5 hours. It wasn't until after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when a suitcase washed up on the beach with Lauren Bassett's name tag on it, that the Coast Guard, acting on its own, was finally able to focus on something remotely resembling the crash area. One last point on this question. All civil aircraft are required to carry an emergency beacon, or an ELT. These emergency locator transmitters are crash activated. If a plane crashes, the ELT sends out a signal that is received by a network of satellites that can instantly locate the crash within a matter of a few feet. So, where did ABC get the information for this picture, which shows a beacon in the crash area? Obviously, the beacon went off as it was supposed to, the signal was received by the satellites as it was supposed to be, and, although news reporters at ABC managed to get a hold of this information, it was not passed on to the rescue teams in the Coast Guard and the Civil Air Patrol. But we already know how that works. The question then is why? Why didn't Rourke and the others involved in this criminal conspiracy want the searchers to know where to search? Again, I don't know is a pretty legitimate answer, but, again, can't we do better? Well, let's keep putting together the pieces we can and see what kind of picture we get. At 2 a.m., as soon as the Coast Guard tried to involve itself, the military took charge of the search. As we've seen, they hit or destroyed many pieces of vital information. In addition, the Mafia, the military, and their accomplices have also seen fit to lose many crucial pieces of information which are essential to our being able to see and understand what happened. Through dumb luck and hard work and invaluable help from others, we've been able to replace many of these missing pieces.
We also heard that they picked up a a radio beacon, the emergency beacon that these airplanes are equipped with, and they're set to go off on impact. And that
we now know, for example, that it is more than likely that John's emergency beacon, the ELT, went off and was received, but that this